So welcome to assignment number 2. So this evening we're going to try to make sure we understand many of the digital ways we'll work, and then after everyone has their lab book we'll be starting some of the analog. So don't feel like everything is going to be working on the computer. About 50% of it will be. So when you work on your computer, you'll also be wanting to use some of the Adobe software called Photoshop. And it's down in your doc below, PS. If it's not, what you can do is you can go over to your Finder window. And in Finder, if you go to your applications, you can look under it alphabetically, Adobe, and then you can find Adobe Photoshop, which here's the folder, and here's the application. So you can either double click here, or if it's on your desk, you can double click here. Once you're in Adobe Photoshop, you'll want to create new. Your space may look a little bit different than my computer because there are things I do on my computer that the last student on your computer may have done differently. So things may be moved around just a little bit. If you're having some trouble when you get to the assignment, make sure that you call me over and I can help you with what you're working on. We're going to do create new, and it wants to know what size of a document and what kind of a document you want to create. So what we're going to do is we're going to always try to have our design the same way, meaning everything so that later you can find it on your thumb drive or on your desktop very easily, and also the most recent version of it if you've been reworking it. So generally what you'd want to do is you'd want to call it by its class name, 2D. You'd want to make sure that we know that this is an assignment, 2D assignment. You want to know what version it is. So if you're working on this all semester long and finally at the last day you've got version 11, you want to know to upload your most recent version, not your first one. So this is V1 for version 1. And then you also want to have your name on it. And that way I can always find it. If it's accidentally uploaded someplace incorrectly or emailed to me, I know that this is yours and not your neighbor's. So I'll put my last name in here. And that should work for my title. Now, I would like for us to do something in a square format, so let's just go 6 inches by 6 inches. So clicking in here, width and height is 6. This is in inches. You can also do things in pixels or centimeters or picas. We'll work with inches for right now. What we're going to do is we're going to look for the resolution. If we were going to print this out and have a good poster, we'd want good resolution at 300. If we want just sort of decent resolution for, say, maybe a paper in your art history class, 150 would be good. But for the internet, your screen resolution is around 72, so 72 is going to be just fine for what we're doing today. In your color mode, if we were to print this out on a printer, it would be speaking to the inks that are in the printer of cyan, magenta, yellow, and the K stands for black. But since we're working on the internet and we want to work off of this computer monitor, the red, green, blue color, RGB, is what we want. Background of white is fine. Sometimes you might want to have the background be transparent or something else. White is fine. So just to recap, make sure that you have 2D design assignment version 1 and your last name, 6 inches by 6 inches, 72 resolution, RGB color, and we'll hit create. Now this looks small. If you put your hand up to it, perhaps on your screen it doesn't look like it's 6 inches to you. But if you look along the rulers on the top, these are inches, and you can see that it's really going to be 6 by 6. But to work in it, you might want to make it larger. So if you click at the bottom, Command and the plus sign at the top at the same time, it enlarges it. You can also hit the minus sign to reduce it. So get it to be about the size that you'd like. And we'll start working. Now I'm going to go across a few of the design tools along the side. All you have to do is hover over them and they'll tell you what they are, and they even do a little demonstration of what each one of them does. What I want you to do first is I want you to see where the paint bucket tool is. And also if you click on this little triangle down below and hold it, it will show you the other tools that are within the same little area. So there's a gradient tool and a paint bucket tool, as well as a 3D material drop tool. But if you can't find the paint bucket tool, it might be that the person who last used the gradient tool has left that there. And you can see we can't really see a paint bucket tool along here. So look for the gradient tool or the paint bucket tool. Click the paint bucket tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint this whole area inside. Before we do that, let's pick a color. And the color picker is right down in here. So that opens this area up. And since we're in RGB color, we will be using these numbers down here if we want to get some exact color. So if you wanted this to be red, what you would do is you turn the R on of the RGB and turn off the blue and the green. And they do this numerically. So if you put 0, 0, 0, 0, what this is doing is this is turning all of the lights off, all of the red, all of the green, and all the blue off. And that's what gives us black. If you turn them all on, and I'll explain why this is this way a little later, but if you type in F, 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 you'll see that the color is white. This is as bright as you can get in RGB mode. So if you only turn on the red, that would be FF, and you turn off the green, 0, 0, and turn off the blue, 0, 0. This is what Adobe Photoshop says is red, right there. So that's what I want you to use for this first one. I want you to create this numerical red. Now we could have just gone through and picked one. Say, oh, that looks like red, or that looks like red, or that looks like red. But these numbers aren't precise. So I want to make sure that you have a precise red. FF0000. Click OK. And we'll spill that into this area. All right, so we've learned how to choose a color numerically. We've learned how to use the paintbrush tool, or the paint bucket tool. Now let's move on to the paintbrush tool. You can see about how big it is, and you may want to adjust that. You can see right now it's at 3 pixels. You can make it a little larger, 100 pixels, and you can see just how large that would be on your screen. Let's make this 25 pixels. And let's just explore what it's like working like you would in your lab book, but working digitally with a paintbrush. So we've got our color picked down here, and if you were to paint on top of here, you're not going to see anything because we're painting the same color on the same background. So let's go down here and change our color. Let's just change it by eye this time. Maybe high contrast green against the red. So any green you'd like, it could be anything in here. So I'm going to choose, what I'm doing is I'm looking at how they look side by side. I'm trying to pick a green that's going to be about the same value as the red. That looks pretty good. That's just what I'm choosing. Hit OK. And now I've got my green paint stroke that's on there. I want you to do one paint stroke at 25. I want you to do one at 10. One at 5. And I want you to do one at 2.5. So here we have 4 different widths of our line. We can also do the opacity differently. We can make it so that we can see halfway through it. Now you can slide this back and forth and hit 50, or you can just move right inside there and hit 50, whichever works for you. I'm going to go back to the 25 size, and I'm going to paint this across. So that's at a transparency of 50. Let's do another one at a transparency of 25. And another at the transparency of 10. And another at the transparency of 5. All right, so we have lines with a different hue from the background, different width, different opacity. So that's looking pretty good. Let's now work on top of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. So right now, if you can imagine, in your lab book, you have painted this and you're letting it dry. And now you're going to work on top of this. One of the things that you can do in digital work is create a new layer. So layer, new, and it will help for you to call things something specific. So this next layer is going to be called shape layer. Later on, you may find reasons why you want to call one thing a particular name or not. But just for the simplicity today, we're going to work on it with a shape. So I'm calling this next layer the shape layer. I'm going to choose some of my shape tools down here. And right now we see there's a rectangle tool, but if you remember, sometimes there's tools hiding underneath it. So we've got a rectangle tool, a rounded tool, an ellipse tool, a polygon tool. So let's choose the ellipse tool here. And when I build it, it's going to probably follow some of the same colors I had before. So when I draw this on here, I'm going to make this ellipse go across the middle of my design. So I'm just barely cutting across the very top line and bottom line. So I let go of that, and these properties show up, pop out. And because I don't want to have the same green on there, I can choose in here into the shape details the color, and I can change it. So you can change it that way. So let's go with another color. Let's go with a blue. That's a little bit, make this just a little bit lighter. There we go. And it can ask you if you want an outline and how many pixels would the outline be and what style of an outline would it be, that sort of thing. But we're just going to worry about the color for right now. So I hit return and I close that up. And if I move away from my shape tool down here to my move tool, the bounding box around it disappears. All right, so now we have a shape. One of the things we can do with that shape is make it stand out a little bit more. I can see it pretty well. But if you ever have a problem with that edge kind of blending in, you can go over to the effects. Okay? So click on the effects initials right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a stroke around it. To me, this is the thing that I use the most, and so I want to show you how this is used. And this will make an outline around the blue ellipse. So right now, if I pull this window off to the side, you can see what it has defaulted. It already has a kind of stroke picked out, but we may want to change this, right? So you can see the size of it. I can make that bigger or smaller. You can see the opacity of it. You can make it more opaque or less opaque. It's trying to blend in with the background. And then you can also choose the color. So I'm going to choose a yellow. And you can see for some reason it's way down here at the bottom, so I want to move way up here to the top. And I want to look for a width that makes sense to me. If I remember, this was 2.5, this green line here. So I'm going to try to make it in between the 5 and the 2.5. So I want to make it a 4. So it stands out. So this looks good. I click OK. So we've got our filled in background, we have our lines, we have our shape, we have an effect, we have this stroke around it. The last thing I want you to do is I want you to create a layer, and we're going to put text on there. So layer, new, and I'm going to put in here text. All right, our text tool is right here. Click it, click in the middle, and then we're going to put our name. All right, so my first name is Scott. It has defaulted to this color. It has defaulted to this font and this style and to this size. None of that is what I want. I'm going to use the same yellow as the outside edge. All right, so what I want to do is I'm first going to change the color. And what happens is the eyedropper tool appears, and I can just go right to this and click on it and get the exact same color. All right, so I've got that color chosen. Now what I want to do is I want to change it to that color. And if I hit the move tool, I believe I caught just a little bit of the inside blue on there, just 1 pixel of that. Let me try that one more time. Text tool, and when the bounding box around it disappears, that means you're selecting the word. Out here it creates a new one, and here it selects it. Let's try this one more time. I must have caught just a little of that edge of that blue. So now I hit OK. And there it is. There's my yellow Scott. I don't like the way it's positioned, so the fact that we've got this as a different layer allows me to move it. Now I can move it with arrows. Right now what I'm doing is I'm clicking those arrows on my computer. It's the bottom right hand side. You can also grab it and just move it with the cursor. So I'm going to put this in here. But because it's leaning, I don't think it fits in, and I think it's too large. So that might be the right position for it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the text tool. I'm going to go over here, I'm going to select it. And I'm going to change the font to something I like. So I like this condensed. That'll fit in that narrow oval shape better. And then I'm also going to change the size. Now it was too large. Now I think it's a little bit too small. So I can choose the sizes here, but you can see I'm already at 85 and there's nothing beyond it. So what I have to do is I'm going to go inside here and I can look and see what works. I'm going to click in 90 and hit return. See how big that is. Go in here and click 100. Hit return. See how big that is. I think 100 is about right. All right, so I'm going to click my move tool. Try to center it. And this is assignment number 2. So go to the Photoshop document and you can have this page opened up and you can follow through the steps. But what I would like for you to do is I'd like for you to have 8 lines that vary on the background. I'd like for you to have an organic shape on the foreground. I want a stroke around it, and I would like your name on the inside. To finish this up, we're going to save it. So as a Photoshop document, you can go back in and change it. It preserves all the layers. You can save it like this, but you can also save as. So we're going to do a second save, and this time we're going to save it as a JPEG because we're going to post it on our site. So I clicked in Format JPEG. I have all these choices. So JPEG. And it's got all the same things on here. If I came back to work on it, I'd change that to version 2, but version 1. Let's go into my desktop save. Okay. And now when I go to our site, I want that to go into assignment 2 under Scott Betts. You'll look for your name because you've already done your first assignment. And click edit right here. I'm not going to do write. I'm going to do edit. So there's assignment 1 all finished. I'm going to go down below, do assignment 2. I'm going to add content, which is the image media. I'm going to add new. There it is. You can see that WordPress doesn't accept the PSD that I saved, but I saved it just so I can go back and rework it. But it does accept the JPEG. So I click choose, wait for it to upload, click insert, see how big it is. I don't really need for it to align with the earlier ones. I think this size will be just fine. If you wanted to change the size though, you just click in the image and move this. Click update. Visit the post to make sure everything's looking the way you want it. And that's assignment 2. Alright, so now close off this video or hold it off to the side and let's do assignment 2.